Oh, Jake. I forgot to fade the music before I started talking. Hello. How's it going?
We're just stumbling into it.
Oh, man.
We're just...
Hold on. I didn't even hit record. Now I did.
Hello.
Oh, it's great. Hi. Everyone says it's new, but it's not. This is not new.
Not new
This
music.
is just the regular show music because it says episode 49 on the tin, which
That's
is
right.
ominous foreshadowing for our first topic of the show. How's it going? You all right? You're a little shook based on your Twitter account.
Yeah, you know, it's not a great day for being
Canadians?
It's not a great day to be a Canadian space fan on Twitter.
Yeah, your Venn diagram's having a rough... That's a rough
Yeah.
day for your Venn diagram.
Yeah. You know, usually I've been like working very actively on keeping social media like at a safe distance from me. Like I go in and I get the things I need from it. I put the things I want to put out there and then I can detach from it. But like sometimes it just hits a nerve and you're like, so that's
Well, do you have a nice drink at least?
Nice. Well, that's a good question.
I don't know
have a
what's
drink.
going on. You've
I
like
have
given me a
drink.
couple of teasers on this, and I'm very confused about
Yeah. Well, I mean, so this is a episode 49. So this is not a happy hour show.
it. Correct.
And I thought, well, if it's not a happy hour show, I should just go back to a beer like I usually do.
Yeah.
And considering what we talked about last episode, I figured the only beer
Motherfucker.
I could really get is. No. Oh man.
Double Tecate. A very
Yeah, but
small
look,
beer.
I got a Jake size one though.
Yeah,
Did my
you did.
camera freeze? So
Yeah, your camera froze for a second.
Oh, that's
Double
incredible.
Tecate.
Amazing. This is the best coincidence.
I was suspicious. I bought this today, and I was like, I think he might have one of these, but
We don't coordinate on this, so this is a purely joyful coincidence. But I did get a glass for it, Anthony, because I thought that eating or drinking from a can would be like very undignified on a live stream. I don't know what it is, but
I'm doing that. It's a Tecate.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's a
It
Tecate,
doesn't
right?
require pouring it out.
The funny thing is, so what was it when we had Marina on? I made that like fancy champagne drink, and before
yeah,
the
you
show
did.
I changed into a collared shirt because I was like, I can't drink champagne in a t-shirt. And then today I was like, oh, I have Off-Nominal. Should I put a collared shirt on? I was like, no, I'm drinking Tecate. This is a t-shirt show.
I'm really excited because you've never had it. So.
Oh, I've had lots of it. Yeah.
Oh, you have? Okay.
Yeah.
Since the
It's-
move though, this was a strictly
since the move.
post Mexico thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Interesting.
I had never seen it before I got it.
The very small new beer. I think I don't know. It's a small beer in Mexico. It didn't make it to
You ever
Canada.
heard of it? Yeah.
Incredible. Yeah, that's great. All right.
Okay. That's a great start.
Adrian thinks that I have 35 beers lined up on my desk, and I just grab whichever one you bring to the show.
Whichever one I have. Yeah. That's one way to brute force the answer, right? No, Adrian, we're programmers, so we would never pick a solution like that.
No. Much too manual.
Cool. Well, cheers to Off-Nominal, I guess, is the cheers, right?
That is the cheers because we have a show update. Breaking news.
Yeah. So I want to start this. So, okay, happy hour.
Happy hour. That was the thing that we decided would be an awesome addition to the show. I was quitting a full-time job. We were entering a new era. So we were like, you know what? Let's do this thing. Weekly, we'll hang out more. We'll try some stuff out. And then it turns out we thought it's actually what the show should have been all along. Like we totally nailed the format.
Yeah, this is the natural home of Off-Nominal, we think.
It just feels right. The time zone feels right. Regularity is good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what does that mean?
So it got a little awkward for a couple of months there because we were like doing the regular show and the happy hour show sometimes on the same week. Like one time it was like back to back,
day
like the
after day. Yeah.
Which like didn't feel very normal, and also that was a busy week, so I didn't really appreciate that. Yeah. So and we've also heard some feedback from listeners that you are very, very mad at us because we don't put happy hour in the podcast feed. So all of that factoring in, we're basically Off-Nominal and happy hour are folding back in on themselves. We will have one show. It's this time slot every week. It's just called Off-Nominal. and we're going to dump this audio into the podcast feed for everybody. So you'll finally be able to get all of the episodes. So that should be very happy for everybody. Yeah, that's it. So I guess happy hour is dead. Long live happy hour. I don't know what you say about that.
It was an experimental transition period. Yeah, we worked out some stuff. We implemented a system where we have, I hate to break it to everyone, we are professionals. We've got the next 6 of 7 episodes already booked with people and topics, and it's like very nice. We got a whole system. I've been optimizing the production flow, so this should go into the podcast feed tonight. And I think it's just the way it should be. It just feels right. This feels like the show. So guess what, audio listeners? If you were someone who's mad at us for having happy hour once a week, you just got 4 times the Off-Nominal in your podcast feed.
You got a lot now.
Yeah, you got a lot. 4? Yeah, 4, I guess, right?
4 a month.
4 to 1 would be roughly, the ratio.
Right?
Yeah. 13
per quarter if you really want to get into it. But I will say though, so just like, for the podcast listeners, the podcast listeners are our OG fans. That's how we started, and our roots are, of course, in podcasts. So we were happy to make sure that you can see all this. But the show is still a YouTube show. So this is where we're putting our effort. There will be tons of visuals, and just for production streamlining, we're not going to have like a bunch of extra stuff to try and make it work for a podcast. We're literally just going to like paste the audio in there so you have it, so you can listen to it in your commute without having to pay YouTube money or whatever. So that's the thing you should just know. If you can make the live shows, they will be the more exciting, better experience. And so we hope you'll come up here. We think of this now as a YouTube show, but we're happy to make sure you guys aren't left out in the cold.
Yeah, and I know like there's going to be some episodes where we probably it lives fine as an audio episode, but there's even some people we've booked already, and some people that we are currently in the process of talking to that are very visual things that they work in. So it'll be like, hey, if you're listening, hit pause, go check it out later if you want to see what we're talking about. So I guess this serves as a good reminder for people listening. If you're a YouTuber, then not like a YouTube consumer, not like a YouTuber, but like if you like YouTube, then we're also on YouTube. Because we probably didn't say that a lot on the podcast.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah.
Anyway.
Cool. So that's exciting. We're stoked about that. So this is episode 49. We're going to bring back the naming tradition, which I think felt missing from Happy Hour. I don't know what you thought, but there were so many good names that popped up in Happy Hour episodes, and then we just never used them. So we're going to resolve that.
We were starting off with like, well, I guess we'll do the show update, and then what are we going to talk about after that? And then, boom, we got some topics, Jake.
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to be arguing about things today? Probably.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Our friendship is at risk today.
It's on the line.
So this was a funny roller coaster because we were like, oh, okay, let's have we're going to have some news. So let's do a show, you and I, and hopefully there's some news. And then there was like, oh, we're going to have a Starship update on Starbase, and Elon Musk's going to talk about all this stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, we have some news. That's excellent. Let's slot that into the show. Washed our hands of it. And then that update happened and there wasn't any information. And so it fell right off the radar again. But then we got some new stuff with Polaris. So this show, the format of the show has changed like 3 or 4 times in the last 7 days. So we'll see what happens with it.
Polaris program.
Polaris.
What do you make of this?
There's a lot to unpack here. I don't think I've like fully digested this into the space landscape yet, about all the things that this has like a knock-on effect to, so I guess that's what we're going to talk about today. But
that would be one of the things to unpack. Yes.
Yeah. So I mean, I think overall it's super interesting, at least from a news standpoint, right? I mean, I'm sure the flights are going to be very exciting depending on how much we get to see them. But I think overall there's like tons of weird niche talking points here that we could probably do 2 or 3 shows on for sure. Yeah. Just
the fact that it is literally a privately funded Gemini program. I guess we should explain this, what happened here.
Yeah.
Do you want to do your best elevator pitch, or would you like me to do my best elevator pitch?
So I guess we got the announcement on Monday, I think, from I don't know who broke it first, CNBC or something like that. So Jared Isaacman, who flew the Inspiration 4 flights, who bought the Inspiration 4 flight and commanded it, he bought 3 more flights effectively. So 2 Dragons and a Starship. And there's some interesting tidbits about, we only kind of have details about the first one, which is a Dragon flight. They're going to go pretty high. They're going to do a spacewalk.
How mundane you're saying that. They're going to go really high. They're going to do a spacewalk.
Really well, yeah, we can talk about the altitude of this flight in a second for sure.
Yes.
And then 2 of the participants are SpaceX employees, which is also like another interesting thing we could probably go very long on. So I don't know, where do you even start with this? Like,
and our friend John Krause is back as the content director.
Snap is back as content director.
We'll have to bring him back for some more blue drink and talk about this.
Blue Curacao update from John Krause. So, it's like, I don't know, which part do you want to chew on first? There's a lot to go on here.
Yeah, there's like some, it's interesting that it went from, a tourism flight for a good cause with some really epic media wrapped around it to very serious business, developing missing pieces of SpaceX's architecture, right? It's basically figuring out the convergence of what is Jared interested in fulfilling as a space bucket list versus what does SpaceX need to develop. And I feel like somewhere in there is everyone's trying to figure out the financial arrangement to this, and I feel like that's probably the extent of it, that Jared's buying flights and SpaceX is putting up development money to build the EVA suit. I assume they're going to need like a new hatch on the front of Dragon to do the actual airlock procedures or lack thereof. They're venting the whole thing, right? So
yeah, they have to take the play place bubble out and put in the play place tunnel.
Which that's a real bummer that the window's not going to be there.
Yeah, but I mean, you traded for a spacewalk, so it's a trade you'd make any day. I think, right?
Well, I guess I'm more concerned for the 3 people. I mean, the visualization, that little rendering here on where is it, that Dawn page, just has a single person going out, and I guess the others get to sit in their seats and look out the hatch while this is happening. But I'm like, are they all going to go out of this thing? Is this going to be an EVA party? Probably not, because they're all going to get tangled up, and that sounds horrible. But sucks for the people that don't get to go outside, that don't get the play place bubble.
I mean, you could trade off, right?
I guess that's a good point.
Yeah, you're up there for however many days, 5 days or something like that, right?
But I think you're only doing this. I don't know how much oxygen they got, but
all technical questions that are really good.
It's very true.
I really wonder, how much, this kind of feature, a spacewalk from Dragon, was that considered in the original design? Are there legacy pieces in the design that were never used that they can now just kind of leverage and go from there? So that's kind of a good question, because I know Dragon's gone through lots of changes, and it's I remember when it was going to land on land. That was
had feet.
Remember when it was going to go to Mars? That was another thing. So
apparently Jared told Tim Dodd that 2 people are going out for the spacewalk.
Okay, interesting.
So that's good.
Yeah. Cool. Which 2 is it?
Well, it's Jared for sure.
It's gonna be Jared and a SpaceXer.
I think it's Jared and a SpaceXer. Yeah. Although, 2 of these people are paying for the flight effectively. 2 of them are working it. So.
Yeah.
Unless you need a chaperone. Maybe this is like when you go skydiving and they attach it to somebody first.
Tied to the front. Just floating around with a person strapped to your chest. Oh, man.
Who would you pick? What astronaut would you pick if you had to go out with the chaperone?
So who's behind me?
Who's your Bruce McCandless?
Mike Massimino.
Really? That's good.
Because he'd be telling me jokes the whole time, and
he also is the appropriate size for you.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, he's a big guy, right?
Yeah, I think I'm taking Grunsfeld.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Grunsfeld. Okay.
Someone that's hugged the Hubble. Or Luca Parmitano, because he's been through some shit.
Yeah.
So.
Or Hadfield, same shit, kind of. So,
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I want an astronaut that almost drowned on an EVA to really keep it nice and calm out there.
uh, yeah, Adrian in the Discord says Bill
Oh,
Nelson.
who am I kidding? Bill Nelson. Jesus Christ. Who am I kidding though? Thomas Pesquet.
Oh yeah,
He'd do some hijinks.
He'd be pretty funny. Okay.
Yeah. Because I'm intimidated by like Anne McClain. I don't know if I could match that energy.
Yeah.
She looks like she would not allow hijinks in the way that Thomas Pesquet would.
I would also be intimidated by like Samantha Cristoforetti, just because like I think I would just be intimidated anytime I was in like 100 meters of her. Just like
Peggy Whitson, the whole like very experienced people.
Yeah. Where I'm struggling to learn my third language right now, and she's like mastering 7 or 8 or something like that, and I'm like, oof, like I don't know, man. Yeah, so that's the spacewalk thing. I guess.
The flight plan. Let's talk about the going very high altitude thing. So they say they're going to go the highest Earth orbit, which we are all assuming means higher than Gemini 11. I should know this because it's my boy Pete Conrad, which was like almost 1,400 kilometers.
Yeah,
very high, beautiful view. I should pull up a pic from Gemini 14. That that one I'm talking about.
Maybe I know the flight. I can't think of the picture though.
Yeah, you know it. Hold on, I'm getting to it. Anthony Google stuff. Part of the.
This is another segment.
Oh, you know this one?
Okay. Yeah.
Where they're real high, you see a Gina in the foreground.
The Gina antenna, right?
Look at that nice curve. That's what I'm talking about. So this is what we're assuming that they're referencing.
Yeah. But
you have a lot of complaints. Yeah. I would like to before you get to your complaints, I would like to talk about how they get to this altitude and what they would do, because I was having a conversation with a friend about like what part do they do first? They launch into a low orbit, then they go up to a high apogee. And the fun thought that my friend threw out there was like, what if they did a direct launch to a very high apogee orbit, right? Like some, not a parking orbit, but some low perigee, high apogee, going up to 1,600 kilometers down to like, 5 or whatever their ultimate goal would be. And then aero brake back down on that apogee. So kind of use a couple orbits to phase down rather than, because that's a lot of delta V to get up all the way to a 1,500 kilometer apogee and then back down before you were to come back in. And they say that the spacewalk's going to happen at 500 kilometers. So how do you what do you do?
Did they actually say it was happening at 500, or is that?
It says it on the website. John Krause is here, so he can tell us which parts of this we get wrong. I'm sure he's been in the flight planning meetings as well.
Because like I don't know how you could ever, like, why wouldn't you do this? Well, so first of all, why wouldn't you plan to do the spacewalk at the high altitude?
I agree. That would be functionally more cool.
If you're in an elliptical orbit, you can, because you go out there and then 30 minutes go by and then you're on the other side of the planet at the high alt. Like that, doesn't take very long. So maybe
you have to be circular.
Yeah. So unless your weird theory at approximately
500 kilometers.
Yeah, man, I don't know. I don't know how you get there. That's interesting. Or they just maybe we're overthinking it and they're just spending the fuel. They go up to an elliptical one, check it out, burn down to 500, do a spacewalk, come home. Like, I don't know. Maybe there's not much to that, but
unless, I don't know how gutsy they want to be with an entry from the 1,500 kilometer or whatever it ends up being, the high apogee re-entry.
But that should be one of those things that Dragon, like a legacy Dragon feature, is that it's got a pretty beefy heat shield.
Yeah, right? That's what I mean. So would this be one of those things that is also part of the flight? That, maybe. Hey, we're going to come back in EFT1 style?
Could be.
I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, so give me your complaints about highest Earth orbit.
Okay, so first of all, it just isn't the highest Earth orbit, because I don't know why we don't get to count the Apollo orbits as Earth orbits. Like, as soon as the S4B cuts off and they detach from the lander, they're still in Earth orbit, and it's got an apogee of like 400,000 kilometers. I don't know why that doesn't count. Like, I can't. And I'm especially annoyed by it because they tried to pull this with the last flight too, Inspiration 4. They're like, it's the highest flight. And then it proved like doubly wrong because Shuttle also beat it like a couple of times. And so, I don't know. I just like, I don't know why they keep trying to like claim these firsts that are just not their first to claim. It's like a bad habit with this mission now, because they also did it with like youngest person in space, first person with a disability, first like with a prosthetic, like all of that ended up being like not true. So
what about the first sports bet? I think the first sports bet. Have we proven that is not accurate?
No, I don't know. I just this mission has got plenty of stuff to be really excited about. Like, why try and brag about the ones you don't have? Like,
yeah. Well, so okay, so if I'm gonna let me play the role of gatekeeper, right? The Apollo things are the Apollo things, also known as the Apollo missions that go out to the moon. Yeah. They are Earth orbiting, because at that moment orbit is a state, not a place, right? So they are still in orbit of the Earth. They did not go to heliocentric orbit. Completed one Earth orbit at that altitude would be a way to gatekeep, right? Like, yes, they were in Earth orbit, but they did not complete an orbit. That's a way to do it. Is that fair in the world of fractional orbital bombardment systems that did not complete an orbit, but they were once in orbit? That gets down to your
the first Starship flight, right?
Yeah, right, exactly. So like if that
did Yuri Gagarin go to orbit?
Precisely. Like, yeah, that's it's all levels of gatekeeping. And then I guess it depends on once they are in the in the KSP version of the sphere of influence of the moon, are they no longer in Earth orbit? Even though the moon is also orbiting Earth? What is a planet, Jake?
You don't need to count that one, though, because like they hit the other part before that. So like, who cares if they even go? Right. Like the spacecraft to just vaporize after 10 minutes.
I'm saying completed. If completed in Earth orbit is your take, they did, because like they were up there on the moon for a while and then they came back around. Like, Yeah. I don't know. Anyway, it's all gatekeeping.
That's my soapbox. Brag about the things you're gonna do, like.
Yeah, we're in the era of like
the PR team. Call me and I'll help you through this.
Which firsts to dunk on?
Yeah. Man. All right.
So the other, you're fine. Okay, you feel like you got that out. Can't wait to see which other firsts it is. Like, first commercial Dragon flight to not have the toilet leak onto the floorboard.
Could be.
Would be a good one. So we're talking about the mission profile for this one, and there's third flight of the Polaris program is Starship's first crewed flight. The second one is very little info. And when I saw the name,
Polaris Day and Polaris Dusk.
Yeah. Polaris Day and Polaris Dusk, yes, in which Jared Isaacman is very old when he flies on Starship, and they bring out the next one. That's like 4 people are gonna get that, I think.
Yeah.
So Polaris Day, we don't actually have a good. By the way, we're gonna use these names so much that then John tells them to use these names on the missions if they have not already decided. It just says mission 2, but I think we can get a little spicier with this. No details on this second flight. When I saw the name originally in that like teaser tweet before the announcement, I'm like, oh, they're gonna do the first crewed flight to polar orbit. And that's not accurate. At least that we know of. Could still be, I guess. They haven't said no to that.
Yeah, well, this is an interesting one because it would like...
That would be a legitimate first?
It seems to make sense. It would be a legitimate first. But it just like, if I was talking about this in the Discord, it just feels like a lot of work, and I don't know what it gets you, because it's not just, point down instead of across when you launch the rocket. Like you have to have all the abort zones set up, right? And I know there's like lots of coastline, but
this is my reason for this though. Let me go on my little rant about this.
Okay, all right.
So the Inspiration 4. Oh wait, this one what am I saying? It could still be. I literally asked them if this was going to polar orbit or not, and they said they're going to the same inclination they did last time. 51.6, which is where the ISS is. That's where Inspiration 4 flew. They use that one because, number one, the way it launches out of Florida, you get all of the U.S. coastline, then you get over to Europe, and there's plenty of zones for abort and recovery. And until someone else changes this, especially for SpaceX missions, all of those human spaceflight missions are going to go there because they want to reuse all of that same architecture. And, we talked on this show a while back about Space Shuttle aborting to Easter Island and how, like, bizarre the aborts were out of Vandenberg Space Force Base. The new route that SpaceX has been flying south out of Cape Canaveral solves a lot of those concerns because it gives you at least somewhere to base your like recovery and abort operations, because you're flying down the coast of Florida, you're going through the Caribbean. If you cut it right, you can just go down the west coast of South America as well, rather than over the Pacific Ocean like Vandenberg would be or something like that. So it's at least an option, because whenever you say, what about a different inclination, everyone says, well, you can't even launch directly east out of Cape Canaveral because then you're just over the Atlantic Ocean. So it is at least an option. And also, I am not a fan of you not being a fan of polar orbits, because seeing the poles from space seems like a really fun thing that we have not yet done.
I think it would be an amazing view. I think it would be awesome, but I just don't know if that's like the risk reward ratio. Is that right? Like all the work to establish a whole new abort zone regime, all that operational planning and setup. Do you need people down there? Do you need any assets? And then you just like, okay, you get a good photo. Okay, great. That's awesome. But like, is it that much better than just going back to 51 and taking a picture of the Northern Lights sidelong? I don't know. Like,
I guess my issue is like, do we always just want to fly at 51.6 degrees inclination forever?
You're right.
You know?
You're right. At one point, we do
that
need
sucks.
to fix that. Yeah, we do.
It's like, imagine if planes worked, but they only went on one particular route, and it's like
LA to JFK.
That's it. Do we only ever want to do that?
Well, the other question I have though is, can Falcon do that? Because Dragon's one of the heavier payloads it does, right?
Yeah.
And
they probably would need to do Falcon Heavy.
Okay, so then that's like a whole other new thing, right? Like,
right. In the era where Starship was not a thing, this might be part of the private Gemini program that we're undertaking to push the capability of Falcon Heavy being able to fly Dragon or whatever.
Yeah.
Also, like, how much are they already chipping away at that work because of the flights that they're putting on Falcon Heavy that are the most expensive national reconnaissance satellites that we have, that also require severe amounts of paperwork and due diligence before you launch that thing? Maybe they're already most of the way there, and they just... Everything with SpaceX is, if no one's paying for it, we're going to backburner it. Right? That is the basic gist of all of the things that you mentioned earlier that have gone by the wayside. Falcon 1 did that. Falcon 5 did that. Red Dragon kind of got sidelined because Starship was becoming a thing quicker.
Yeah.
So that's why this is a cool program to me, because Jared is looking at this program as a way to contribute to the development of space by not just sheer investing money into SpaceX and hoping whatever they do is the right direction in space, but saying like, I want to do a bunch of things in space, and I would like to incentivize you to actually develop those things. So yeah, people even mention Gray Dragon, which would be fly a dragon around the moon. Like, if that's a thing that Jared's interested in, and the delta between where Falcon Heavy is now and where it needs to be to fly people is not that much, and is, coverable by the cost of this program. If SpaceX has a customer, why wouldn't they do that?
Yeah, no, and I agree. And that's like, I mean, I've been saying this for years. SpaceX's brilliance is making their customers pay for their R&D, right? They did that through all of Falcon development. Like they're great at it.
What they do.
So so this makes a ton of sense. And honestly, I'm like mad at myself that I didn't see this coming. But it still would depend on Jared wanting that, right? So Jared is going to have to say, okay, here's what I would have to put into this, and if it's the customer pays for R&D, then like he's going to be putting a lot of fronting a lot of cash to get Falcon Heavy and a polar corridor all set up.
Yep.
And if you're Jared, you're like, is that worth it for that shot, or would you rather like, is there something else you could do? Like,
right.
Are there better alternatives?
Okay, right? So that's here's the legitimate case that I think you're stumbling upon. If you're going to pay money to incentivize the adaptation of Falcon Heavy to crewed flights, are you going to, I guess it depends on how they would do this, but like, if the two options were pay this amount of money and get Falcon Heavy to fly you where you're going to go to polar orbit, you're going to try to go see the moon.
Yeah.
5 days is what Polaris Dawn's going to be. It's not that much longer to do a free return.
Yeah, and maybe that's it. But then it's like, well, if you're going to go to the moon, why don't you just do it on the Starship flight rather than the Dragon flight? Like,
because that's Polaris Dusk. He's going to be very old.
Yeah. I don't know. So I think there's possibility. I think it might be true, but I think there's a lot of reasons why it might not be true too. So
I am going to be kind of mad if they used the name Polaris and didn't go to Polaris.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to be as annoyed that we wasted the good name of the Ares rocket on a thing that barely ever existed.
Yeah. You can reuse rocket names though. We've done it before.
Especially when they didn't exist.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah.
Side jag to that. How happy would you be if SLS got renamed to Ares? Not? Or a little bit happy? Do you want it to have a real name?
I don't think it should be Ares because it's not going anywhere near Mars ever. So, I mean, I think it should get a better name. Yes. Yeah. Like Saturn.
Yeah,
What
that
a
was
name.
pretty clear on the ultimate goal. Heliopause. This is what I'm in mind. Yeah,
it's wrong, but the majesty of Saturn is pretty.
It's wrong only because we never put a centaur on that sucker.
Yeah. Jupiter 4. Lots of good names. But I think Starship should be renamed too, though. So maybe I'm the wrong.
That's fair. John, content director of the missions that we're currently debating, would like us to break down why Apollo flights and their distant orbits should not count or should count as Earth orbits. So Gatekeeper Kraus here to check with us.
Well, I mean, very simply, it's in orbit of Earth. And it's very high. Like that's it changes because eventually in the orbit it runs into the moon, and so things happen to it. But like even so, if you really want to like forget the lunar orbit thing, Apollo 13 just did one full revolution essentially, and
yeah, exactly.
So it just got tugged around a little bit by the moon on the far end of it. I don't know why it wouldn't be on Earth orbit.
I guess, all right, let's push this one to the extreme. If you were able to do, well, number one, like, is completing a full circuit what counts as an orbit, or is it merely the state that you are at any given moment? And I think it's a state. Orbit is a state. Right?
Orbit is a
It is not a place. It is a state. So if at any point you are in the state of orbit, you are in orbit or on orbit, as some people would say in their Twitter accounts. So precisely, the Starship test thing is a good example. Like, was that an orbital flight test? You know, presuming that they go to orbit first and then deorbit less than one full orbit later. Was that ever in orbit? No one would really argue whether it was in orbit. Does it matter if it didn't complete all the way around? I don't really think so.
Yeah.
So.
That's our argument, John.
Yeah. I don't know.
Okay. So
you have some theories, I think, right?
I do. Yeah. It's kind of a weird one.
All right. I'm game. I'm game.
Okay. So I'm sure you've seen. We get into this conversation in our Discord all the time. It's pretty played out. But you know the idea of like how important is Elon Musk, the person, to the enterprise of SpaceX, right? That's a question that comes up. Like sometimes it's like, no, he's the X factor. Without him, it's nothing. He's the special someone who makes the whole thing happen. And then others will argue the company is 10,000 people that do a lot of really good work. The CEO just can't be that important, right? Like, you know, so, and you can have that argument until the end of time if you want. But the thing about the argument of him being really important and the clutch key cog in the system means that you also have a very, 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 very bad weakness in your business in that what if something happens to Elon Musk, right? So if you're an investor, let's say you're one of those special people that got to buy shares of SpaceX and you're a big investor, like you should be really, really worried about Elon Musk all the time. Like you should be like, is he taking care of himself? Is he getting enough sleep? How's his eating? Like, you should be always thinking about that, right?
Should be like Fitbit friends with him or something.
Yeah, you should. And there should be
gotta get those steps up.
There should be a like pretty good succession plan somewhere on a piece of paper, right? I don't know if it's Gwyn or someone else or whatever, right? But there should be a good succession plan. All good management has succession plans.
Yep.
So I was thinking about that in the concept of Polaris, and I was like, now there is a person who has demonstrated that they can start a business from the ground up to become a triple comma person, is interested in space flight, has lots of experience with airplanes and rockets and management, and is like really, really into the whole vision of space for humanity and all that kind of thing. So I don't know if this is like a plan, but Jared Isaacman is now like a candidate to me.
He's a name you would surface of like.
He's a name. He's on a short list now somewhere of like, who could take over SpaceX when Elon Musk goes to Twitter jail forever, right? Like,
and I think the way it would work is that if Elon decided he didn't want to be at SpaceX anymore, and Gwynne Shotwell became CEO, Jared would come in as a COO, and eventually be the CEO, right?
And
like that would be
do it that way. Yep.
That would be the thing. Like not necessarily immediately promoted from going on a spacewalk, and then running the company, but like, yeah, you're right. If you drew a list of like the skills that a person would need to be in the same ballpark, yeah, you got a lot of the list right there.
And if you're one of those big investors, in the non-existent board of directors, or do they have a board of directors? I don't even know. But
I assume so. Maybe not. I don't know.
If you're on like the inner cadre of power brokers behind SpaceX, man, Jared Isaacman is a breath of fresh air when you think about public relations. So.
Yeah, he's doing. Oh, should we talk about that aspect of like the charity aspect of this all? That's continuing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we should.
Because it's continuing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like it needs to. If they wanted to stop, I feel like I would give them permission to decide that they are now running the privately funded Gemini program and, talk that up as the good that it is for the direction that humanity's going.
Yeah. No, they could. This is tough, right? Because you got multiple factors there. Like, you're gonna have like Jared just cares about St. Jude, obviously, and so he might not give two shits about whether he should or shouldn't do it.
Right.
He's just gonna do it, right?
Well, if it raises some money while we're doing it, great.
Yeah, he's just doing it, and he doesn't really care what you or I think. But the second thing could
all bets indicate that. Like, everything that we have say that is exactly what's going on there.
That's my leading theory.
Yeah.
Without knowing the inside of Jared's brain, that's probably what's happening. But then there is sort of a PR aspect to it, right? Because as we've seen, this company has a controversial CEO, and he doesn't always get good press, and that's hard for SpaceX. And so being able to attach himself to SpaceX, if I'm Jared Isaacman, if I can attach myself to SpaceX but bring in good juju, that's a strategic move, right? So
basically do like a good version of Jim Cantrell. Attach yourself to SpaceX really hard, but have a good outcome this time.
Yeah. That's an interesting analogy. I have to noodle that one for a little bit longer. But yeah, so I mean, there's that, right? I don't know. I mean, if you want to be a cynic, you can be like, yeah, it's just a distraction or whatever. Like, is this charitable contribution even like effective? Like, would it be better off if he just gave the money that he spent on the space flight for that?
Do it, Dylan Taylor.
Yeah, you can have that. You can have that debate if you want. But I think the one thing is it probably elevates St. Jude to like a charity people maybe who didn't know about it now consider it all the time.
Yeah.
And so there's some pretty big knock-on effects there. And
which is why I think that's a good reason in your theory of like, hey, he just legitimately cares, and if that's the thing that he can also help raise awareness of or whatever, that's a good side effect. I just think it's like a pretty clear shift that this is now serious business. I don't feel like, and it might not look different to people that aren't us talking about this, right? If you interviewed random people, they might look at this the same as like, yeah, people are going to space, typical derogatory comments of people going on joyrides or whatever. But if you're interested in space, you see it as like, oh yeah, they're legitimately incentivizing development of things that no one else is. There's half the flight is employees. These are professional astronauts. To bring up that whole debate, like Anna and Sarah are going to be professional astronauts. Like they could put that on their LinkedIn. Professional astronaut, not commercial astronaut employed by a space company.
Got paid to go to space.
Yeah. So it's pretty clear that it is serious business.
Mm-hmm.
And put me in the camp of like being for serious business. I enjoy serious business in space.
Yeah, no, I agree 100% with you there, because it's like we've been through like just years and years and years of talks and promises of like, this is what space could be, and it's like here finally is like just some people with no government sponsorship out there spending money and doing things, and it's like that's like really refreshing. It's like something to like grab onto and be like, this is chewy, right? Like this is like this is useful work happening here. So
well, and it's also I think to like out of body experience this and talk about if you're like NASA watching this, right? If you're somebody that is in the NASA Human Landing System program, how pumped are you that someone else is paying SpaceX some money to figure out how an airlock works, right? Because whether or not everyone's getting vented vacuum in this spacecraft, like that is how an airlock functions. There's just a door on the other end too. So this is like airlock practice. This is proving NASA's point that other customers matter, because SpaceX didn't get money from NASA to develop an airlock independently of the whole landing budget, right? And they probably haven't spent any money on an airlock through the Starship program at the moment. I don't think they really have spent any time on that yet. So guess what? The space ops side of SpaceX is now working on airlocks.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. I mean, whoever are like the big linchpin decision makers at NASA that like green-lighted commercial cargo and commercial crew, they are just overjoyed.
They got to be loving this
whole thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. There's lots of people that are involved with that, but
I'm getting taken to task here by Mr. Content Director. We should just call him up at this point. But John Cross is telling me it's publicly confirmed the entire capsule will be depressed, no airlock. Yeah, but an airlock is just a spacecraft with a door on both ends.
Yeah.
That's how it works, right? So this is airlock practice. There's just seats on the other side, not a door.
It's a one-sided airlock, yeah.
Yeah, so they got to like develop the hardware that depresses and represses. They got to develop all the safety checks that they need to do before they do that. Make sure, who was it? John Young's corned beef sandwich doesn't go floating out the hatch.
Yeah. No, I mean it's great. It's really interesting and exciting to see, and it's new and it's fresh, and it's just gonna give us so much more to talk about and think about, and it changes like preconceived notions about what you can and can't do in space and who does things in space and everything about like it just turns everything on its head, which is like I think why right off the top I said that like there's so much here to digest. Like we haven't even really talked about the 2 SpaceX employees. Like what does that mean, right? Like there's
they have an astronaut corps now.
Yeah, like so are they? Is this a one-off thing just for Jared, or are they like hoping to really grow this? And if they want to grow it, what do they want to grow it for? Like, is there always going to be SpaceX employees on these ships? Like, is this like basically how Starship, flight crews start? Like, I assume if you're going to send 100 people somewhere, then you can have a crew on there to take
probably
care of them.
Probably going to need a flight attendant, make sure everyone keeps their mask on.
Someone to give them that little tiny glass of Coke with 15 ice cubes in it. Like, you need to have that, right? And so this is kind of like the start of that. And that's just really interesting to think about because, no other scenario do we consider that, right?
It does. Airlock jokes. The one aspect of this, right, that we're talking about private individuals incentivizing the development of things that they would like to see in the world. On a similar budgetary scale is like, I would really like to see a picture of this particular location on the moon. I will purchase a developed flight unit to go land on the moon and take a single picture of me on this particular part of the moon that I would like to see. Or I have several $100 million and I would like, as your favorite would be, 10 insights for very cheap on the surface of Mars. Like once there's, we are now seeing this personal incentivization of a mission. I don't think this is the last time that we're going to see something like that.
Yeah.
Which is interesting to consider at a larger, like, planetary research
Yeah,
scale.
yeah. Well, and the Insight example is actually really apt because, like, if so Insight gets a bad rap because things didn't go very well, and now it's being suffocated by dust. But if you follow the whole history of that Insight mission on Mars, which is a seismometer lander with solar panels, the PI for that has been working with other people as well, has been working for literally like 30 years to try and get this mission going on. Like, his initial papers with like mission concepts were in the late 80s, I think. So he tried every way he could do. He tried, getting it into decadal surveys and getting it onto this mission class or that mission class, trying to get the Russians to do it. All these things didn't go well, and he finally like got this thing, through the Discovery program, and it's just there's a ton of compromise on it. Like, it's not even part of the Mars program. All the instruments are provided by Europe. Like, it's a complete nightmare of a
Can't even
setup.
clean off its solar panels.
No, yeah, can't even clean up its solar panels. So it's like a nightmare of a setup, but he got it done, right? And so like that's like the heartwarming story about it. But what that kind of shows is there's people out there who have these really interesting ideas on what they want to do in space, but NASA was the gatekeeper, and he could not get through the gate except for this weird little side door where he had to hunch over and hurt his neck. Like, that's what happened with this thing. And so this kind of stuff with Polaris is like, I really hope it provides opportunities. I mean, not just this particular program, but the new era we're entering provides these opportunities where someone like Bruce can come up and be like, I want to put 10 insights on Mars. And they go, great, when you want to fly. Like, and there's no gatekeeper, right? So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a thing that the shape of it is something I think we should get used to. The details are going to change. But, foundations, organizations, people always are spending money to create a research organization or to fund a project, go look at something on Earth. A lot of climate stuff going on these days in this realm, and it's silly to think that would not happen as it gets cheaper to expand out beyond us. And then in the same vein, it's like we have an example now. We got to thread the needle for the space nerds at the moment, or for the Gen Pop at the moment, but not the space nerds, that like this is the serious business time. This is not just a joyride. They're like incentivizing development. I think the storyline that if there's a sufficiently interested person, I feel like that's the storyline to tell them. This is not something that SpaceX does all the time, because Inspiration 4 was like, the thing they were pushing was regular people going to space, but we're using all the same hardware, the same operations. It was operationally the same thing they've been developing for ISS flights, but the difference was the people. And now it's like, oh no, let's do some new stuff. Turns out a couple people have not been to space before in the flight, and are like regular people, but that's no longer the unique aspect there. The unique aspect is, I want to do things that SpaceX doesn't have yet, so we're going to partner to develop these capabilities. And I think that'll be true for like the companies that are in the commercial lunar payload services program. They're going to have lunar landers. Like, people are going to want to do weird things when you can get payload to the moon, and these companies might partner with them to develop special capabilities of their landers in the future to do that. And that's the future I want. That's a timeline I want.
Yeah, it's interesting, man. And it creates so many interesting paradigms that we're just like so, and I didn't realize how so unaccustomed we are to it. But like, so one thing I was thinking about was just like, okay, so imagine this program's done. So the 3 flights have passed, and now you have Jared Isaacman, who has flown to space 4 times and is like, he's paying, but he's also kind of a professional astronaut. Blurry line there, but like a pretty experienced astronaut. Like, there's going to be many traditional astronauts with far fewer flight experience, like less flight experience than him, right? And it's like, oh, whoa, what is this? What is that? What box do you put that in? And then their answer is, there is no box to put it in. It's different. And that's just kind of fun to think about, just kind of shaking things up a little bit, right?
Yeah. I get to have new gatekeeper arguments, which is also great.
Yeah. Wow, people love those, man. Yeah.
You love taking dunks on them, but
I do.
Should we get into the Starbase non-update or Starship non-update for 5 minutes? Our last 5 minutes here.
Yeah, well, you have the good theory on it. So you put out a podcast on this. It was great. So people should listen to Nico if they haven't.
My theory boils down to the fact that I think this was like an NBC exclusive announcement. Like they had something on the Today Show. I never actually even looked at what that was, the announcement there. But that's, what's his name? Tom something or other is like the NBC reporter who tweeted this first. I can't remember.
Yeah.
One of the Toms. He was at the Falcon Heavy launch. We like watched him set up his very professional setup with lighting and all in the same press room that we were all in. And we saw some tweets from Jared Isaacman doing flybys of Starbase in the week leading up to this event. Kind of had the sense that there was some Jared connection to the Starbase update. But then it came and went with zero mention. And Elon referred to, like, there will be some upcoming missions I think people will be jazzed about. Tom Costello, John Krause informs me, content director, probably talked to Fancy Tom himself. And so there was, like, all this kind of circling evidence that there was a thing going on with Jared and Starbase, and then nothing happened on that Thursday, and then all the announcements were Monday, which like purely makes me think it was supposed to happen that Thursday, and it was an NBC exclusive. They were going to be set up there doing live shots or whatever, and Elon and Jared would be announcing it together in front of the fully stacked Starship. This is the first crew that's going to go on Starship. But it didn't happen because NBC has been fairly busy. Not sure people outside the U.S. would know this, but they have been broadcasting the Olympics. The Super Bowl was last weekend on their network. I kind of feel like they just got punted to Monday, and we're like, we'll get back to that after the Super Bowl.
The crazy space billionaire can get shunted to the next. Yeah,
but Elon was like, I'm still doing my update, so we're just gonna get out here and talk. Invite all the reporters to go drive too far into Texas and spend a lot of time for like. You know, everyone's article had a little bit of sass in it this round of there weren't many news things to talk about. So now Tyler's giving me crap saying not sure if non-Americans know about the Olympics. I'm talking about the Super Bowl and that NBC was broadcasting all this stuff. Their airwaves were a little full this past week. So that's my theory, is that it was like intended to be. There's no way it was not intended to be synced up. From Thursday to Monday, and they're not going to mention it. Like that would be a ridiculous thing if not for this NBC time.
It's a super awkward comms coincidence that any good comms manager would be like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah,
yeah. Huh.
But anyway, so there were like very little Starship updates because I think the whole thing was intended to focus on this person is paying for the first crewed flight on this crazy rocket behind me.
Yeah.
But instead, it was hey, let's get out those slides from 2016. Update them a little bit, put the new metrics, and then talk about it some more.
It sucks for SpaceX too, because SpaceX's big thing with that update, in my opinion, was all about just like kind of like some saber rattling to the FAA to approve it, right? Like there was a lot of like.
I'm undecided on that.
No, man, there was like planted local officials talking about how like great the jobs were going to be. Thank you so much for saving our community. Like. This like purely just coming out and threatening, like if you don't approve this, we're leaving Texas. Like explicitly saying that.
Yeah, that was the one thing, right? That they were much more upfront about bailing to Florida if something presented a challenge.
That message would have had so much more weight if you could be like, look at the stuff we're doing with this. Like this is not a made up program. We've got real customers doing real stuff with this. Approve the damn thing, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's what they were really. That's the message they wanted to get, and so it's a little muted by that, but hopefully. Gets through, but
yeah, they might have to move the Florida thing is an interesting one. That's for another time to unpack.
Yeah.
Speaking of Starbase,
yeah, I
this is your plug.
Yeah,
okay, great.
I was trying to tell the story. So I was idly watching this non-update and kind of had an idea for a design. So if you need a new shirt, look at this hunky guy. Isn't he a handsome guy? Holy moly,
it's beefy.
Yeah. So you can get this new Starbase shirt, and it's got a beautiful Boca Chica sunset on it. And so if you need a new shirt, a new space shirt, and you want to support the show, here you go.
Do you want to tell them where to get it?
Yeah, you can get it on my shop, shop.wemartians.com. I always assume
I should set up subdomains for my joke We Martians domains.
Shop.wemartians.
I gotta set that up.
You need a Spanish one now.
Oh man, that's not as funny though.
Yeah, so check it out. I guess we should also talk about memberships, right?
We should.
Very important.
We should talk about memberships.
especially all the podcast listeners who are refusing to come to YouTube. We have memberships now for this show, so we know it's always been a little awkward to support Off-Nominal. You have to go and sign up for the We Martians Patreon or the Miko Patreon, which didn't make a lot of sense. So you can join this channel as a member now. It's $5 a month. That gets you into our amazing Discord. We could probably do a whole episode on how cool our Discord is and all the neat, interesting, weird stuff that happens in there. We've got lots of people who work in the industry and provide us great insights on all sorts of things. Like we've got community-run bots that are really, really fun. It's just a great place to hang out, and we think
there's a lot of bots.
So, there's a lot of bots. Yeah,
you can make predictions via bots. You can.
Yeah.
What are all the other bots? Oh, they'll fill you in on acronyms.
Yeah, we've got launch alerts.
Bots.
Temperature conversion things to make it easy to have cross-cultural discussions, and we think it's a pretty cool place. So if you want to hang out with us all the time and all the great people that make up the Off-Nominal community, all the anomalies, $5 a month in the YouTube channel, and you can join us. So we hope you help support the show.
And make sure that we do more of these shows, that we'll do things in the future. You'll be funding whatever hijinks we get into when Artemis 1 moseys its way on out to the launch pad. Man. It's getting, I don't know. Haven't really been a lot of updates. We haven't really scheduled anything since hearing about the delay, but we have a lot of plans in mind. At least
we're all planning to go. We just don't know when it's going to be. So
memberships,
man.
YouTube.com/offnominal. There's really not a better way to. There's no URL. YouTube does not give you a URL that's like a cool thing.
No,
you just got to go to the main one.
Big join button right on that page. It's fine.
Yeah.
Anything fun you're working on? We talked about your Polaris episode, but
the Polaris was a big one. Nothing I can really plug yet. Next week on this show, you will be traveling.
Mm-hmm.
I will have special guests that will be talking about financial space topics.
Mm-hmm, yeah.
So take a hint. I can't announce the guest yet because we're working with very professional organizations that have yet to approve our guest spot. But it'll be financial space topics that are discussed on this show. Space SPACs, space stonks, as you write in the show notes.
Can't spell space without SPAC.
You can't. You certainly cannot.
Yeah, that's going to be good. I'm excited for you guys. I'm taking a vacation next week.
Boom.
So deal with it.
Take some time off. He's going to drink a bunch of Tecates.
A bunch of Tecate, yeah. So it's just an offensive amount of Tecate. Let's see. Bruce Willis is going to come down and knight me because I'm going to drink so much Tecate.
The personal sponsor of all Mexican beer, Bruce Willis, via way of deep fake.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hanging out with us, everybody. This has been fun.
See you later, everybody. Enjoy the podcast listeners.
Yeah, our
say
friendship
thanks.
is intact.
All you people who yelled at us on Twitter, you tweet us and say thanks.
Yes, please do.
Bye.